Welcome to The Secret Witch Show, the podcast providing a safe and alchemical altar space of conversations which help powerful women escape a half-hearted, spiritless society and rediscover the freedom of living a wildly magical life. Every other week, we explore how to cast aside the wounds of shame, guilt, and fear connected with fully being yourself, so you can grant yourself permission to stop hiding, ground soulfully back into your body, illuminate your whole soul desires, tend your soul, rediscover and reclaim your powerful gifts, express your magic, and manifest your wildest alchemy. There's no better place to become who your heart longs to be. This is where we will guide you into liberation. I'm your host, Nicole Barton, and I'm so excited to dive in. Welcome, my loves, to the show, and we are in the Valentine's/Galentine's mood this episode as I explore the tender, soft remedy of self-love. I'll just take a moment to share before we dive in. Just in case you don't know, there is a whole library of very self-loving and healing archetypal remedy journeys in our Apothecary membership, Secret Witches Apothecary, if you are called to healing your inner witch. These are all self-paced, so you can join and journey at your own rhythm. And the real question is, are you called to the healing work of your witchy soul? And will you follow it? If you are, and you can feel your body nudging you, head to nicolebarton.co.uk/membership to find out more. But today, let's dive into the episode on The Secret Witch Show. I am exploring the deeper truth of self-love, and not the fluffy bubble bath version we see everywhere in February, but the raw, often uncomfortable, thorny, Rosa-coded kind that meets us right in the places where we feel unlovable. Speaking to the secret witch who keeps pushing through her tight-chested tension, armouring herself in capability, and abandoning her own needs in fear of disappointing others, Rosa invites us to notice where we've been living as a closed bud, braced, tense, performing "I'm fine," instead of softening and opening into the tenderness our magic actually requires. In this episode, I explore why self-love isn't a luxury, but is the foundation of a witch's power, how the archetypal Rosa wound compels us to override our bodies and earn love through self-abandonment, and the real embodied moment that I chose differently recently, cancelling my day, offering myself softness, and risking being too much or not enough in order to come back home to myself. This episode is a gentle and powerful invitation into wholeness, into welcoming all parts of ourselves, tending our shadow with love, and remembering the power we keep forgetting we already have. Let's dive in. Welcome to the show. Today's episode feels really timely, and it's what I've been wanting to speak to for a little while. It feels like it's like bringing in the beautiful energy of self-love, which is perfect timing given we are just about at Valentine's this February, and really speaks to the center for me of what it means to walk this path as a secret witch. If you've heard me ever speak before, you probably have heard me say the words "all is welcome." And so this episode is the embodiment of that. I always talk about how each episode kind of serves a remedy from our apothecary, and this one is very much the remedy of self-love. So I'll reveal more on that in a little while, but we're exploring self-love today. However, not the fluffy rose quartz bubble bath version that we see everywhere in February, or the hearts and flowers of the commercialization. We're going into the real self-love, the uncomfortable, thorny self-love, the self-love that really is an invitation to meet ourselves in our shadow, in our wounds, in the places that we feel uncomfortable, places that we feel unlovable, in the moments where we've been kind of holding everything together on the outside whilst collapsing on the inside because we haven't had compassion for ourselves. And that's the invitation in this episode, is to have some self-love. If we can't access self-love, then self-compassion. Because the truth is, as we're walking this witchy path to claim our witch and integrate our secret witch and heal our secret witch, is that self-love is not like a side practice. It's not like a tool that we use. It's not like, oh, I'm going to do a bit of self-love or I'm going to give myself a little bit of self-love. It's not a quick fix as it's kind of banded around in other paths. Like self-love in this path is the path. Like it is the foundation of our magic. It is the thing that really has us remember our power. Like we talk about power and that might sound a bit strange because our kind of conditioning around power is that it's hard and masculine and fearful and fearful and fierce and like, yeah, all the kind of really strong. But actually, the power of the witch is in her heart, is in the self-love. And so this February, with Rosa as the archetypal remedy of self-love, that's the rose, of course, and the world talking about hearts and romance, like it's the perfect moment to explore this, to get like a felt sense of Rosa's energy. And as I say Rosa and kind of like bring her into this episode, like instantly has this sense of like, the rose, like we can soften, like let's wrap ourselves up. I mean, if you're listening to this, um, maybe you want to listen in the bath and have that rose petal bath. Or as much as I've said, like it's not about the self-love in terms of like the practical aspects. And I guess I say that because those on their own, without kind of having some integration behind them, are like kind of almost sticky plasters. It's when we bring the two together that's helpful. So we're bringing in that gorgeous, nurturing, loving energy of Rosa. So make yourselves comfortable, get yourself a nice cup of tea, maybe a rose tea, get yourself in the bath or wrap yourself in blankets and cushions, light a candle. Like this is the energetic of this episode. So let's drop in. Let's take a breath and just consciously choose, like, I'm going to soften my body, like soften any space where you feel like you're bracing, because we're just going to go in and explore the power that you keep forgetting that you already have. And if you are a secret witch, it's likely that you've kind of internalized a very particular wound, this wound of believing that we have to fix ourselves before we're worthy. I know this is a huge one for the secret witch who has learned that to be worthy, to be whole, she needs to fix herself. And that is the biggest kind of thing that comes up for the secret witch in this path, actually. When I think back to all the places where women have really received healing and felt healing in this path, it's always this sense of like, oh, relief. Okay, I'm not broken. Like, I don't have to fix myself. I am like whole as I am. Like, I am, like, I can love myself as I am. Like, that's so huge. Like, that is the biggest piece of healing that anyone takes, I think, from any of this. And it's so vital. So this is for the witch who maybe you believe your shadow makes you unlovable. Like there's this sense of like, I can't have wounds. I need to fix them. I need to change. Or we believe that our emotions are too much, or we believe we're not enough, or we believe our value is in our capability or our performance or what we've created, or we believe that softness is dangerous, or you believe that saying no makes you difficult, or you believe that rest means that you're falling behind, or you believe that you must like earn love by holding everything together. This is how the secret witch expresses the wounds around self-love. And underneath that is always an inner little girl who at some point in life has learned that the rose thorns, the shadow, the wound, that love had to be earned through performance, that we have to tighten and brace, that we can't just love ourselves. There's potentially a scared inner part who never felt worthy, who never felt chosen. And this beautiful, tender, sensitive witch who just was never met in that place. So we grew armor and we grew capability. But inside, we were really just starving for our own self-love. And this is the wound that we're healing and starting to open to in this episode. We're obviously not going to do it all in one episode. That would be magical. But we're opening the door to Rosa and her medicine. Because here's the thing, right? Here's the juicy gem, is that the parts that we struggle to love, the parts that we hide, the parts that we feel ashamed of, those are the parts that are very often the parts that are holding our magic. So this is important work. And I'm going to share a little bit about my own Rosa wound, because I've seen there's many, many, many different remedies in the apothecary, and I managed to embody all of them in their wounds and gold, because they're running through all of us all of the time. Like, they're creating as us, they're already within us. And we have our own map, our own personal soul map of remedies. But Rosa is one of mine, and Rosa really is one of many witches. Because it's one of the kind of fundamental remedies of the witch, ultimately. So I was going to share, because recently Rose has been showing up for me, not just like as a one-off, but like as a theme, because I've had, as I've said a few times, like one of the most challenging years for material for liberation, for alchemy, for expansion, last year ever. And I started to see that I was really being called into Rosa's medicine. Like, there are a few days and weeks and months where my whole system began to whisper, because I went through an initiation with homeschooling my daughter, which is still, and we've created that magically now. But right at the start, when I was in wounding and thinking like, I don't know how to create this, like, there was a period of time where I went back into my old patterns of like pushing, forcing, trying to make everything work, fighting, like really like closed and tight and tense and defensive, and being like, oh, I'm going to just defend against this. I'm defending. So I went kind of like shut down into that like tight bud of the rose. And so my whole system was kind of gripping. And at the same time, I see, because this is how I see the world works. Like, it was also calling me into rest. My body was going, hey, hello over there. Can I have some softness? Can I have some slowness? Can we pause? Can we slow down? Can we soften? And there was kind of that fight going on. Like, at part of the time, the inner secret witch who was like in Rosa wounding, like, no, thorns out, we're going to fight. And then there was part of me that was like, yeah, but we could just soften, like we could soften. And there was that compulsion of this pattern with Rosa's wounding, to keep going, to like not let everybody down, to fight everybody, to hold everything together because everyone expected me to take all the responsibility, like that kind of good girl, capable woman pattern that has us override our bodies because we're terrified to disappoint anyone. So there was this kind of armoring up, which is also kind of, the armor piece is kind of another remedy called aura, which is gold. But the rose is like very kind of like thorns out, and like we're tight. And so we're like a bud that's kind of not kind of opening. And so inside my body, I could really feel this kind of tension, this call to softness, because we often don't see tension as a call to softness. We see tension as something to fix, right? Because that's the wound of Rosa. And it's like, oh, what if we don't fix the tension, but we learn to work with it? We learn to see it as a way that the body communicates. We learn to see that, oh, this is actually showing us like I'm in Rosa wounding and I'm being called to soften. And so I could feel this in my body, this wound of the rose thorns coming out and wanting to fight and wanting to keep pushing through. And my chest was tight and my breath was like shallow and my shoulders were all like tense and my whole system was like braced with its thorns out, ready for fight. And I look back now and I can see like, oh yeah, that was again, like obviously a call to Rosa, because Rosa calls us to literally be the rose, to relax, to open, to soften, and to fully express. So I wasn't relaxed. I wasn't open. I wasn't soft. I was closed, like tight, like a bud that is just refusing to bloom. And when we're in that way of being or in that state, because it's a homeopathic state, an archetypal remedy state, um, we're in some kind of inner little girl wounding where we've learned to stay tight in a bud rather than open and soften. So we've learned to contract and defend and wound, like, and kind of, yeah, be in the wound. And that's what the Rosa wound feels like, is that kind of tension, that contraction. And at the same time, we're kind of feeling the call to be like, "Oh, do you know, there's a different way. There's a feminine way. There's a soft way. There's a relaxed way." And I think us secret witches can really feel the truth of that. Like, there is another way, but we also resist it because that other way is like so foreign to us. And our nervous system is wired for the contraction. So it's taken me a lot of work to be able to start to unpack that for myself. And I've taught Rosa for many years as an archetypal remedy. She's in the apothecary. She's beautiful. She's a gorgeous, gorgeous energy to work with. But again, like, we're not here to fix ourselves. Like, our wounds are our wounds, and they will keep showing up in times of our lives where we get triggered into those states. And so this was a time where I got triggered into a Rosa state. But the beauty of working with remedies in this way, the beauty of the witch and her knowing like what's in her inner apothecaries, she can look at her apothecary and almost like taking the bottles down off the shelf, be like, oh, this tension, this tightness, this closure. That feels like Rosa. I'm going to work with it. And that's what happened. So I had this day, for example, or this week, where I'd got my diary was back to back. I think because I'd actually cancelled some people the week before. And I had clients, I had plans, I had podcasts, I had events. And like my whole week was like back to back, which is unusual. I'm going to be honest. It's unusual for me. The only reason that had been the case was because we hadn't yet created a queendom of support for the homeschooling. I hadn't I was dealing with multiple different projects at a time. I'd burst the apothecary. And there was, it was Christmas. There's so much going on. Christmas is coming. And like, essentially, I just had slipped back into that over responsible, tighten down and just go through with your thorns. And when I was in that and I started to take a look and say, yeah, my body feels really like tense. So what's going on here? Like, look in my apothecary, aha, it's Rosa. And there was that kind of tiny knowing within that was like, stop. Like, just stop and slow down. Like, we are missing the rose energy. And the Rosa wound, of course, was then like still showing up. It's like, no, you're not worthy of stopping. Don't you dare cancel. Don't you dare like disrupt what we've planned. We're keeping going. Like, don't risk annoying people. Don't be too much. Like, you're not worthy. Just keep going. Hold it together. Stay closed. Like, we don't even want to look here. That's the shadow expression of Rosa. Like, I'm resisting, relaxing, opening, softening, and expressing. And this is the part of us who thinks that love has to be earned through abandoning ourselves, through tightening, through closing. And I could feel myself being pulled back into that familiar wounding pattern, that old pattern, which I've had huge alchemy with, by the way, over the years. But our wounds are our wounds. Like, I'm not on a pedestal. I still go into my wounds. The difference is I know how to do the self-analysis that helps me to spot that and come back to my body. So then once I was able to do that, I saw it. I was like, oh, this isn't truth. It isn't true that I have all of these responsibilities and I can't soften. Like, I can. I don't need to armor. I don't need to override. I don't need to tighten further into a closed bud. I can choose differently because I'm in wounding, like the little girl part of me is choosing. And there's also a little girl part, or a powerful part actually, that's like, hey, we can stop. We can choose differently. And so I did. I chose to take a temporary pause, cancel, clients, even though I'd already cancelled them before, cancel my event, cancel my podcast, cancel all the things, and just allow myself to be in my body, to soften, to relax, to choose self-love. And not just in the actions of like going and having a rose bath or whatever it is, but in the messy everyday, like, I don't feel like I can cancel this and I'm going to kind of way. In the way that's like doing the analysis of like, oh, look, like this is an interesting pattern. Why am I not choosing myself? Why am I not choosing self-love? Why am I abandoning myself? And I did that as much as I needed to in order to meet myself, at the risk of disappointing people, at the risk of discomfort, at the risk of all the things that feel thorny as we try to come back to ourselves and our hearts and open and soften into the feminine. And that is hard, like, because choosing self-love, aka Rosa, when we're deep in the self-love wound, the idea that we're not lovable enough, that we're not worthy to choose that, feels impossible. It feels like we don't deserve it. It feels dangerous. The word I've heard a lot of women say is it feels selfish. Like it feels like we're going to be punished. It feels wrong. We feel fundamentally wrong and like we're going to be judged. And that's a threat. But the moment that I chose myself and honored my needs, something in my body softened and knew that I'd been met. Like my breath deepened, I felt soft, my body relaxed, and I just kind of opened into that rosebud. And every time I've made that choice to prioritize my soul, my feminine soul, my body, every time I've prioritized my needs and softened and opened, like that's been healing and liberating. And so that's the invitation, really, in this episode is to think about where can we soften? And where do we hold beliefs about softening? Like self-love isn't indulgence. It's literally the moment that we're able to start blooming because we can't pour from an empty cup. So why is self-love the foundation of magic? Well, magic requires wholeness, and wholeness isn't perfection. Like it isn't this kind of, we need to fix ourselves and be perfect. Wholeness is allowing every part of us to belong, to all parts are welcome. Like literally the catchphrase that everyone always comes back to is like, all parts of you are welcome. That is what self-love is. Like the shadow, the mess, the fear, the doubt, all of it is welcome. And when we allow that, that's when our magic awakens. Why self-love is the foundation of magic? Because like when we are wanting to hold a vision and call in a vision and create, if we're abandoning parts of ourselves and kind of shoving them, I would say like in the shadow bag and holding it over our shoulder, like we're not going to see it, like that part is the part that becomes powerful and starts to snowball and create for us until we're willing to look there. So self-love brings that part back. It takes it out the bag and says, I'm going to look at you and you're okay. Like all of you is welcome. Like that is the most powerful spell we have as witches, is the moment that we stop fighting the wound and we meet it and we get into intimacy with it and we love it. And as we do that, it alchemizes. It means that our shadow loses its power. Like, and our magic is able to be fully expressed. Because shadow only transforms when it feels safe. We can only create healing and transformation when that part of us feels safe to express, be seen, be held, be loved by ourselves, when our own kind of inner mother comes online. And self-love is what creates the safety for that alchemy, because our inner mother is loving, like she's the inner nurturer. And it's kind of that moment where we kind of turn towards the part that we'd normally push away and we say, you're welcome here. I'm not leaving you. That is the moment when we step into our power, when we're able to heal ourselves. This is healing. This is the art of healing. Like everybody will think healing is going to some other healer and having them do some energy work or give you pills or whatever it is. Like that's how we've been conditioned healing works. The real healing is reclaiming our wholeness by welcoming parts of ourselves that we dislike or we shame or we fear or we doubt. The shadow, the wound. That's when we become a healer witch of ourselves, because all parts of us need to be welcome in order to reclaim our power, in order for our magic to be fully expressed, relaxed, open, soften, fully expressed. So, little mini Rosa magic intro there. Ultimately, Rosa is the archetypal remedy of love. She is an opening as well. She's the kind of softening of the defended places, the kind of the opening, just coming into the feminine. And she's here to remind us that we are worthy, that we are lovable, that we are whole, just as we are, like no need to change. And she teaches us that softness. She teaches us to use our thorns to have boundaries. She teaches us to have tenderness, that vulnerability, particularly like that real feminine essence vulnerability, that putting our hearts open and expressing from the heart and having self-compassion, because that's where our power is. That kind of feminine power. Opening our hearts to life, to magic. So she's very much that sacred mother energy in so many ways. Although there are mother remedies that are specifically around that, but she has that kind of warm, nurturing energy. She's able to kind of like hold our inner child instead of with criticism, with like love. And so she calls us to open and soften and become the rose, become the energy of the rose. So, where do I want to go now? It's about kind of the how-to, I guess. Like, how do we actually start to embody that? And of course, there's no like one quick answer. This isn't a quick fix. If you've listened to any of the podcasts, hopefully by now, you know, this is not, I'm not going to give you quick fixes. Like, this is why our podcast episodes are so long. They're like all about the inner work and some embodiment, because of course, like there's the alchemy of the two. But it's the deep inner work, not just the rituals. It's the kind of marriage of both, like the inner and the outer. And so what I mean by that is the inner Rosa work is the moments we turn towards ourselves instead of away, and we bring love to ourselves. That kind of all is welcome energy. And we meet shame with interest and curiosity and be like, oh, that's interesting. I feel shame. Why? What's going on? It's the moments when we kind of speak to ourselves as if we'd speak to a child. And like, oh, it's okay. Like, I see your innocence. Like, all of you is welcome. And noticing, it's in the noticing, the deep work of noticing that we often overlook as if it was nothing. Like, the more we can lovingly notice, because what we tend to do when we start to notice our patterns, like say, for example, armouring, tensing, contracting, like as we start to notice that, what we're conditioned to do is shame ourselves for it and be like, oh, damn it, you're in Rosa energy and you shouldn't be. Like, that's not what the work is. The work is, oh, bless me, look, I'm armouring. Like, how interesting. Like, what's there to be seen about that? Like, where can I love that part of me that wants to armor? And then we can start to soften. Like, there's no shame here. The inner work is also like pausing self-abandonment, allowing ourselves to liberate that, letting ourselves rest when our body asks, like welcoming all the messy parts of us. This is the deep work. This is the work that really transforms and heals, as well as, of course, meeting ourselves in the very practical, embodied way of being in Rosa's energy. So those kind of more obvious kind of self-help kind of ideas about what self-love looks like. So whether that's like meditation or breathing or making a cup of tea and drinking it slowly, or lighting a candle, or having a rose petal bath or a bubble bath, just like softening, putting our hands on our hearts, like having chocolate, buying ourselves flowers, like having a little altar or clothes that feel really silky on our skin, or like just pausing for 2 minutes and just doing nothing, stroking our body, like any of these kind of ways of soothing our nervous system, because that's a big part as well of Rosa. Like these are also embodiment of Rosa. They're signals to our system of like, I matter, I'm worthy, I'm not abandoning myself. And so these rituals are medicine, like they can anchor the inner work into the body. In isolation, they're just rituals. But when we combine that with the inner work and we kind of do the two together, that's where we're coming back into real deep integration. And that's why a lot of the quick fix methods don't actually have the depth that's required to create the healing transformation. The inner work and the ritual, the embodiment, that is where the magic is. That's where we actually integrate and kind of can really begin to heal and reclaim self-love for ourselves. So I am going to come to a pause in a minute, but before we do, I'm going to give you some inquiries to take with you. So you might want to like grab a journal, a pen, and just pause this and write some of these questions down, just to start the process with Rosa. And I'm not going to take you too deep here because if you're going deep in a remedy, you want support. So I'm just going to give you kind of surface level starter inquiries. Firstly, where do you resonate with Rosa? Like, how do you see yourself in her? Because archetypal remedies, they hold up a mirror for us and we look in the mirror and we go, oh God, that is literally like, that's me. And that's when the healing can begin. Like that self-illumination, which is one of the points of our path, one of the the kind of the parts of the apothecary, the elements of the apothecary. It's we need to look in the mirror at our patterns. So particularly though, where do you find yourself tensing in your body? Rosa calls us home to the body. So really notice in your body, like where do you feel tight in a bud? Also, where do you have that pattern of self-abandonment and like really being critical of ourselves? Is there a part of you that is asking to be loved, but you keep ignoring her? That can often show up in a way that's like there's a particular wound that keeps showing, keeps showing, keeps showing. And we're like, oh, so much shame, go away. What would happen if you softened? Like how do you feel about the idea of softening? Often there can be some deep resistance that comes up in relation to the idea of softening. So it's a juicy one. So let those questions kind of stir whatever they stir for you. I'd love to hear if you want to share any of what comes up. I'd love to hear. So please do feel free to reach out. You can email me info@nicolebarton.co.uk, or you can share them wherever you like on social media or wherever. But just allow yourself to be with whatever comes up. I always say the first initiation is as we start that self-illumination process, like, can we love ourselves in what we illuminate, in what we see? Like, that's Rosa's work. So that's why she's kind of like the portal to the deep work, because we need that foundation of self-love to be able to go deeper and look at our really kind of sensitive, tender patterns. And when we begin to choose that self-love, like truly choose it, that's when we begin to reclaim our gifts, because we get access to the wounds where our gifts are hidden. Without that self-love, we're never going to see that because we're just going to live in shame. All right, my loves, thank you so much for being here in this beautiful Rosa space with me today. If you want to journey deeper with Rosa, her full archetypal remedy journey is actually inside the Secret Witches Apothecary membership library. So we have lots of remedies in the library that are all kind of very much self-paced. So you can take it at your own rhythm. It's a very slow, tender, self-paced exploration where you can really meet the medicine that is kind of calling to you without any pressure. So it's got a very kind of Rosa feel to it in the library as well. And yeah, it's really gorgeous. So and you're more than welcome to share whatever comes up in these inquiries. But I'll leave you with the reminder that self-love is our birthright. Like, it's ours. It's always been ours. And it is also the power that we often forget that we have. So, really important. All right, my loves. Mwah. See you next time. I love an episode on love, especially self love. Here are my takeaways. Self love isn't superficial, it is the foundation of a witch's magic, the inner relationship that makes everything else in our lives possible. The Rosa wound is the pattern that makes secret witches override their needs, perform capability, and earn love through self abandonment, even as their bodies whisper or scream for softness. Wholeness isn't perfection. It is the radical act of welcoming all parts of ourselves home, the shadow, the fear, the doubt, and the tenderness included. The moment we soften and we choose that instead of armouring, choosing our needs even when it feels undeserved, is the moment our inner Rosa begins to bloom. Practical self love is both the deep inner work of meeting ourselves in shame and the tender rituals of devotion to our body, tiny acts of beauty, presence, and self honouring. When a secret witch chooses to love herself in the exact place she once abandoned herself, her power strengthens, her magic opens, and she becomes truly unstoppable. Lots of love.